your buddy Moo Juice Magic here, and I understand the grind and the push to try to be successful. And you know who else does? There's a fellow named Joe Rogan who's become the most successful podcaster in the world for a reason. Even one of the most successful YouTube channels. Not the most, but he's up there. You know, he's not hitting Mr. Beast numbers, I'm sure, but he's still doing quite well on YouTube, even after being off of it for many years. But MSNBC has an interesting take on the subject, and they want to, I don't know, did Joe Rogan get unseated as the #1 podcast of all time? Let's have a look. Should be interesting. I can't believe we're watching MSNBC clips.
All right, new topic, Joel, before we go. The left-leaning podcast, Midas Touch, has just done the unthinkable, dethroned Joe Rogan to become the country's most popular podcast. Do you see this as a sign of a bigger political shift? Because even these three guys specifically, they are not your touchy-feely progressives. They're like three bros from Long Island.
Yeah. Look, I think that this does signal, one, Democrats and let's just call it the non-conservative ecosystem catching up to where the kind of Rogan right has been.
And they're not policy guys.
The Rogan right? The Rogan right. Guys, Joe Rogan is not right-wing. He likes guns. He likes his freedoms. He likes to eat meat. I guess he's not a vegan, so he's not. I mean, he's done vegan diets before, he says. So the guy's not right-wing. He's a leftist. He's not even a leftist. Sorry, I shouldn't say leftist. That's the wrong term. He's a true old-school liberal, meaning libertarian. The guy is in the center, a little left of center on a lot of things. I am right of center on a lot of things, but I am left of center on a lot of things as well. I have some very leftist views. Like, I think polygamy should be legal. I think that gay marriage is fine. I think pot should be legalized. Shit like that. When it comes to our economy, when it comes to our military, when it comes to my rights, I'm going to be very conservative because I care about my freedom and my kids' freedom and making sure my country does better. And that's where Rogan was coming from when he voted for Trump and had Trump on. He tried to get Kamala on, and she wouldn't go on. That's on her, okay?
Guys, they're anti-Trump guys, and they crank it out all day, every day.
And I do think the fact that this is organic. This is not a part of the ecosystem that was just built up, you know, with heavy investment from millionaires and billionaires. These are folks who've been grinding and working. And
okay, so Joe Rogan, you think that he had just heavy investments from millionaires and billionaires to get where he's at, fella? Is that what you're telling me? I understand the grind, and if these guys that they're talking about, the Midas Touch podcast or whatever the hell they're called, I've never heard of them until now. I appreciate the grind and good for them. If your main selling point is that you're anti-Trump, you're going to have MSNBC numbers. And if you look at the numbers, it's not great for MSNBC right now. They're not doing well. They've been caught in so many lies because they're so emotionally charged, and that's all they go with. They do not have logic and reason. I'm not going to talk trash about this Midas Touch podcast because I've never heard them. But if that's the selling point and she's promoting that way, that's not going to do you well. This guy's saying they did the grind. That's awesome. But you know what? Rogan did the grind too. And he didn't have a big investment from billionaires and millionaires. He worked his ass off to get where he is. The guy grinds all the time. I know for a fact this dude has never worked as hard as Joe Rogan at anything. Because Rogan just doesn't stop.
My suspicion is they probably were going to get to this point anyway, but it does, I think, signal where groups and where organizations and where candidates on the Democratic side are going to focus a lot of their effort going forward. You've got to dominate this space. That's where conversation is. That's where a lot of people get their news, is on YouTube, online. You have to be present there. You have to have messengers that are fearless and that know how to talk to these folks comfortably and in messy conversations that are often complicated.
People often say that Democrats don't know how to hit. These guys are hitters.
Yeah, and look, Democrats have the confidence to go anywhere and make a case. We've got a fragmented media ecosystem, so it's good to see a little more political diversity in that. Democrats are going to have to play offense and stop just preaching to their choir. Right? The essence of evangelism is winning converts. So you got to get out there with the confidence to make a case and not simply play to your base.
Good point. He made a good point. And he just said the quiet part out loud, whoever this guy is. He just told you guys the absolute truth about the Democrat Party and leftists. It is a religion to them. They want to convert you because that's how they survive emotionally. This is their spiritual beliefs. Their religion is leftist politics. Leftism is their religion. They don't care about Jesus or God or Muhammad or anybody else. They care about what they believe politically, because that is their entire personality. What makes a cult successful is the personality behind the leader. Unfortunately for the leftists, they have no more leader. Their leader is the idea, which is a little more dangerous, because that is how you end up with, anyway, situations like the Middle East for the last 20 years, or planes going into towers, or people going into schools of pew-pews. There's a reason those guys all lean left, because it's their religious ideology. Just throwing that out there, guys. Just throwing that out there. As for Rogan being unseated by a podcast that probably no one had ever heard of until now, very unlikely. It's possible. Numbers fluctuate. But times are not leaning towards the left in America. The times are leaning back to the right of center. And that's just a reality some of you are going to have to accept, that people like me were correct about the economy. We were correct about illegal immigration. We were correct about a lot of things you don't agree with. Because it's not our religion to believe that. It's our desire to have freedom that we believe. Joe Rogan worked his ass off to be where he's at. The reason people like Joe Rogan, he's friendly, he's likable, he's intelligent, he will ask questions that most people wouldn't think to ask, and he sits and just talks with people. He doesn't have preset lists of questions for these interviews. He's his own boss. He does what every guy aspires to be. Be stronger, be fitter, be more intelligent, to better yourself every day as a person. When Rogan voted for Trump, he voted for Trump because he saw how things were going, and then he sat down and got to meet the fella and have a conversation with him like a real person, not just this figurehead on television that he knew. The idea that Rogan somehow had millions and billions of investors backing him to get where he's at is insulting and disgraceful thing to suggest for someone who worked his ass off to get where he's at. As for the Midas Touch podcast, man, if they're good, they're good. I don't know. Maybe they're good. Maybe I'll listen to them just to give them a shot. But if their whole selling point is what this chick says, I'm not going to listen to them. You're going to tell me that this guy is just anti the good things that are actually going on in my country? I'm not going to be a fan. I'm sorry. Things are getting better in the last month that this president's been in office, whether you like him or not. Now we're talking about mortgage rates going back down. My mortgage will be cheaper. That'll be great. More people will be able to buy houses if they can afford them. Hopefully the economy goes and fixes itself in the right direction too. We'll see how that goes. I mean, there's still some things that need work, but the damage that was done while Biden was in office was severe. The wound is deep. Cutting all this government crap and the fat out of it and giving that money back to the people, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm Moo Juice Magic, and I love you in the face. I'll catch you later.